Welcome everyone to the Brain Podcast. I'm Peter and Csathy of Creative Media, your host. Today's conversation is a fascinating one with CEO of Character.AI, Karan Anand. In 1 hour, we covered a lot of ground. We focused on a lot of the stories of the past about Character.AI and its reputation and the struggles it's had. Very openly and very candidly, we talk about, and I ask the hard questions, and we talk about Character.AI's surprising pivot into the media and entertainment space, where now Character.AI considers itself to be an entertainment-first AI company. That's something that surprised me. I think will surprise a lot of you out there. And we talk about what that means given the background of Character.AI and AI companions and all the troubles and very serious issues and tragic results that have happened as a result of it, and how Karan and Character.AI can gain the trust of the creative community, the major entertainment companies who own the IP that they would like to license, and also about user engagement, user-generated content, and overall fandom, something I very strongly believe in when it comes to the AI opportunity. So with that, here's my conversation with Karan Anand, CEO of Character.AI. Karan Anand, good to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for having me here, Peter.
Yeah, of course. And where are you today, Karan?
Today is Seattle.
Okay.
I split my time between Redwood City, where Character.AI is headquartered, and home is Seattle for me.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, again, thanks for joining today on the pod. Welcome to the pod. And we're going to get into a lot of different things. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the things that you're doing on the entertainment space, because it looks like that is, I don't know if you'd call it a pivot, I guess. How would you characterize it? Because most people know of Character.AI as being a AI companions.
I think there are a lot of different definitions of Character.AI from its beginnings as a research lab trying to building foundational models to then becoming this app, which was open-ended, you could do anything, and companionship was definitely one of the use cases. But I think in the last 16 to 18 months that I've been involved with the company, we have a very clear focus that we are the AI entertainment app, starting with text-based chat and role play. And in the last 12 months, with a lot of product innovation, we've evolved heavily into other multimodal experiences, comics, books, stories. So I envision a completely new world of entertainment, which is natively powered and built with AI, as opposed to AI being latched on later. And I think that's the vision we've been working backwards from. So it's come a long way since it was just a chatbot or it was a companion app. Now it is the number one role play app. But now increasingly it is going from just role play to a multimodal entertainment app. Okay.
So would you say that when we think of you, we should think of you mostly as an entertainment app now?
Indeed. Yes. So think of if Roblox, TikTok, and Wattpad had a baby, a new world will emerge. This is what Character is rapidly evolving into.
Yeah, which is interesting. I think that I would say that most people who are listening to this actually would be surprised to hear that. So it's going to be interesting to dig into what that exactly means. And Anand, you took over as CEO about 1 year ago, and so that was after Google. It was, I think, largely considered an acqui-hire of the former CEO of the company, and then a licensing deal with Character.AI, where they licensed your technology. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's more complicated than that, but generally directionally aligned with the fact that Google wanted foundational model builders.
Yeah.
And Noam and team were fantastic. So the foundation model research team went back to Google to help build Gemini models. Character then became very clearly focused on, we had an amazing research team building vertical entertainment experiences. And that's when that transaction helped us have insane clarity on what we want to be, as opposed to being be all end all for everything. So that's how the deal was. And then Google's deal with us was purely a backward looking tech licensing deal. So to help them build the Gemini models better versus to anything to do with the Character as the app or the use case or any of the newer vision that we have on entertainment.
Yeah. And I would be remiss to not point out just to everybody who's listening that there is currently antitrust review still ongoing, or at least some kind of scrutiny by the federal government, correct? On that deal, on the Google deal.
Not aware of it, but I'll need to check back on like if there's anything current or active going on. But yes, I'm glad I don't have a general counsel on the call with me. Otherwise, he would let me not say half the things.
Yeah, understood.
No,
Understood. So, Karan, you've been, like you said, for about 1 year now as you took over. So, what would you say when you did take over? What was your mandate, and how have you transformed the company? We talked a little bit about how we should think of you today, as opposed to how most people thought of Character AI 1 year ago. But how would you characterize the mandate you were given by the board, and what your core priorities were from that point forward?
Yeah, it's a fascinating company, Peter. The board was me and one other person, so we were the board and the CEO. But I think the mission and the vision actually came from the employees. All the employees who were already at Character, they all genuinely believe that yes, AI is extremely powerful to be your co-pilot, your assistant. It can help you with coding. But a much larger, more vibrant use case of AI actually will be in reshaping entertainment. So that was always a deep belief that the company and the team always held. And that's the reason why for a year plus, we've been only focused on solving that. And last year, a lot of conversation was, you have these amazing models, you have these great research teams, you can build a lot more. But we've been so focused that we only want to stay in the consumer and the entertainment space versus getting distracted by building a coding assistant, a language learning assistant, Duolingo equivalent. Like a lot of people tried those use cases or come to Character for that. But we've been very, very clear and focused. And that vision and mission has actually been very organic and deeply rooted in the company's beliefs from the get-go. My mandate, if you will, was how do you operationalize that vision very quickly? And the reason why time really matters is, as you know, AI is pretty expensive to run. And hence, we've been blessed that we had some money at the end of the deal to have a runway to go iterate on this, but we had to go solve for running this at a highly cost-efficient way because we scaled to 20 million users, which in the world of AI is very expensive footprint to run. How do you run that efficiently? But then how do you monetize this? How do you go from just being a text chatbot into multimodal experiences? Because entertainment is great with open-ended text, but people want visual experiences. People want audio, video, comics, images. How do we rapidly grow on those 3 dimensions? So the three things we took on last year. Number 1 was trust and safety. How do you grow AI in the most trusted, safe way possible? And that's very foundational to who we are as people in the company, but also who we are as a company. Second one was scaling this, the cost efficiency model, which is unparalleled in the industry because we know we want to build this for hundreds of millions of people. And third one was expanding to use cases just beyond chatbot or AI companionship, as you mentioned, into a full model. So those are 3 things we've been executing relentlessly on for the last 12 months.
Got it. Okay. And so since you were talking about scaling, you mentioned that you're about 20 million active users today, correct? And so about 1 year ago when you took over, how many active users did you have at that time?
So we've had a fun journey with active user count. So that's monthly actives. Our daily active is about 6 million and very high, hence DAU to MAU ratio kind of goes to show how engaging the platform becomes for people to come back every day. But we've made some pretty big shifts, Peter, over the last 12 months, or actually now 18 months, on banning chatbots for under 18. So we used to have under 18 users. We let go. We pretty much offboarded a lot of that cohort because we don't want to open up chatbots for under 18. Happy to talk more about that. So we took a big haircut on our user base, but then we grew back up because we were a default way for a lot of over 18 users to come to the platform. Similarly, we also decided for trust and safety reasons that we will not want to become an NSFW chat app, which is a lot of other apps. And as we shut down,
what did you say? NSFW?
Yeah, not safe for work or more.
Oh, okay, not safe for work. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the So and there are a lot of sex chat apps that exist today. As they start from companionship, but they end up becoming more like the sex chat apps. And we decided as a company that's not who we are. We're trying to build a general purpose entertainment platform. And as soon as we made those policy changes, we also had a haircut, but we still grew back in. So our journey on the user base has been a lot of strategy decisions and trust and safety decisions. So every time we grow, we shave off haircut. So we've kind of held steady, surprisingly, despite all the changes. We've held steady between the 15 to 20 million monthly active range for the last 18 months now.
Okay, got it. So since you mentioned trust and safety, I want to ask you a couple of things.
Please.
And we'll get into some other things later on, but I want to touch upon a couple of things, and then we'll get into the media and entertainment. Sort of the, I'll use the word pivot. I'll use the word pivot because I think, again, most people don't really think of you that way. When you came on about 1 year ago, you mentioned in a blog post that you wanted safety filters to be, quote unquote, less overbearing. And so at the time, what did you mean by that? And how do you feel about that statement 1 year later?
Yeah, that's a great place to start, because I think our approach to safety, just given where the state of the art of the technology in AI was, we have models and then we have classifiers, which essentially try to think, we think we detect that you're talking about violence, so we're going to shut down this conversation because we don't want violence. And we were very clear that with our talent and the research muscle that we have, we can do better than that. Because a lot of users on the platform come, and one of the very popular genres is vampires and World War stories that people want to role play.
Yeah.
In that example, if you're talking about violence or blood or shooting or these contexts, just having a filter that will shut down a conversation is not a great experience, because you essentially are in a World War story book or in a vampire fan fiction, and then you want very intelligent understanding of the context, the user, the character, to be able to say, okay, in this context, it is fine. And what that statement was meant to mean, which is a lot of the users gave feedback saying, we here as creative writers and storytellers building these storylines, please do not shut down these filters, these conversations. And there was acknowledgement to the feedback we had heard from community that the filters were a lot more blunt. And in the interest of safety, we were having a lot more blunt shutdowns of these very, very relevant conversations on the platform. So optimizing those overbearing filters was, we will, with our research muscles, be able to understand way better in which context talking about violence and blood and gore is acceptable because it's a story role play versus where it could be unsafe. So I think that those are examples where, similarly, romantic conversations or other genres that we have, how do you understand the context much better and not use a blunt force filter way? Fast forward a year, most of that noise has gone away because our models have become so much better in understanding the context, following instructions. So a lot of this has been essentially been the output of deep research work that went in to not require just blunt tools like filters that we had in the past.
Okay. I think I understand. And, obviously, these are important issues as you're courting the entertainment world. I've been in the tech, media entertainment world for my entire career. And so I know the DNA of these companies. I know all the Disneys, the IP holders, all of those. I also know the talent community very deeply, the agencies and all that. So there's, and there are a lot of really interesting use cases I see for entertainment and for these companies and IP holders. One of the, realistic things that you as a company and you as CEO will be facing is that typically, Silicon Valley doesn't think the same way as Hollywood. That's just the reality. I've seen it. I've lived it myself. And so gaining trust is 100% essential before conversations can open. So that's the reason why some of these issues are so critical to understand what those filters are, what you're doing about it, how the company has perhaps changed its perception about these issues over time. And one other thing that you mentioned, and by the way, this is just, helping you understand why some of the questions that I'm going to be getting into, because those who are listening, they're going to want to understand the answers to these questions because they're not thinking of character AI in that way. One other thing you mentioned is that you've banned chatbots for those under 18 years old. Now, I wasn't aware that you've actually banned them. My understanding is that you have a two-tier system where you essentially have a bifurcated user experience where you have those who are 18 and over. But so explain that a little bit more, where you say you ban chatbots.
Actually, I'll answer that in a second, but I think I want to acknowledge a very important point that you mentioned right before this, which is our goal is to build the 100 billion people entertainment platform. And there is no world where we do not work with Hollywood, we don't work with the studio IP right holders. And your assertion is accurate, which is we need to earn their trust that this is a company which is mature, understands these nuances, and is make some pretty hard calls to make sure we're building a very safe, broad platform versus a niche vertical in any of these, smaller areas. And a lot of our thinking is guided from that lens. So what we've done is we've acknowledged where the state of the art is, what is possible, and in certain cases when it's we cannot solve certain problems, we rather offload that use case. And it's exactly your second question, which is 18 months ago we created a bifurcated experience, and if you're under 18 and you were chatting with characters, you'll have a very, very strict set of conversations you can have, filters you would have, types of characters you can engage with. And if you're over 18, there would be a different set of rules and content policies and models and filters for you. Kind of like you have PG-13 chat experiences and you have NC-17 chat experiences as an example, as a model. What we learned as more research came out and a lot of feedback came from parents and regulators as well was, while we can do content moderation with different policies and bifurcated experiences, there are other possible longitudinal effects for under 18 users to keep talking to chatbots for a very long period of time. Given how early this technology is, the industry didn't feel comfortable that we can promise that under 18 chatbot experiences over a long period of time can promise to never have any kind of harm at all. At that point, we decided, instead of us spending all our energy trying to figure out how to make the under 18 chatbot experience safe over a longitudinal period of time and spend research, that's an experience that we will just exit altogether. So last November, which is relatively recent, and that changes rolled out globally only a month ago, we entirely shut down chatbots for under 18. So the bifurcated experience is now, if you are an 18 and below user, you can still use the app and do stories and read books or listen to audio, all through generated AI. But only you have to be age verified 18 above to be able to chat with the bot. So that's a more recent decision. After trying the bifurcated experience, we just went on a path where 18 and below, there are no open-ended chats anymore.
So what does that mean to have an interactive entertainment experience for those who are under 18?
Great.
If they're not having a conversation with the character, like let's say I've made an entertainment character, Karan.
Yes.
Will I not be able to interact with that character?
I think the format of entertainment and interactivity is exactly where the difference lies. So instead of having open-ended chat where you can keep asking hundreds of questions back and forth and nudging conversation, in these new formats that we have, one of them is called stories. You can set up the initial premise saying, hey, Karan is a nerdy, geeky guy in this context. Here's his backstory, and I want to now interact with them. The model will generate the story. Because it's generating the story one time, we can run through very clear safety filters to saying this is safe. And then after that, you're no longer chatting, but you get choice pills. So you get 4 choice pills, and then you can steer the story whichever direction you like. So it's still interactive, it is still exploratory, it's still engaging, but it is not open-ended, unbounded, open-ended chat. So I think that's how experiences are shaping. They're becoming a lot more on-rails, chip-based selection experiences versus, no, I can say anything I want to the bot, and the bot will respond.
Okay, but there is still interactivity in terms of being able to speak with the bot.
Yeah, speak being pre-created choices that you can navigate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so one last question about that then. So there is certain legislation that's happening now on Capitol Hill where you have Senators Hawley and Blumenthal who introduced what they call the GUARD Act, which is a total ban on AI companions for minors. So given what you just said, does Character.AI support that? We've always welcomed regulation, Peter, and we've been involved in a lot of those conversations, both the parents and regulators, to make sure that yes. So short answer is, do we support these changes? Absolutely. In fact, we are the first ones who already have done it. So we already, for minors, don't allow any chatbots, let alone companionship. We just don't allow chatbots. So we were ahead of the curve, that we were not waiting for regulation to say this is not a use case that minors should have access to. We've already done it. But we were involved in a lot of those conversations with the parent groups and advisory groups to say, how else could you be giving them AI if it's not chatbot? That's the reason why the experience we just talked about on stories is an alternate way where you can still build very engaging experiences for minors,
but it doesn't have to be a chatbot. It doesn't have to be open-ended, unbounded conversation. So yes. So short answer is we absolutely support all the efforts that Senator Hawley is making with GUARD Act, and it needs to go further because that is very clearly scoped towards chatbots. And as you mentioned earlier, with studios and all the industry moving rapidly forward with AI will not look like chatbots going forward. It'll look very rich. So we need to make sure that regulation keeps evolving. But overall, we are always working with regulators to make sure this is done safely. So yes, we do work and already are way ahead of compliance with GUARD Act.
And one of the things that's one other factor that's part of that legislation or proposed legislation is age verification being more sophisticated than it has been. So can you just touch upon that a little bit in terms of how you feel confident that minors are not able to have the full chatbot interactive, companion experience?
Right. So actually, when we made these changes, I'm glad you brought this up because when we made the changes last October, November, and we made 3 changes at the same time. One was under 18 minors cannot have access to chatbots, but we knew if that's all we did, we would open up the surface area for people lying about their age, and just asking them for enter your age doesn't solve the problem.
Right,
We actually, in parallel, rolled out age verification in sync with these chatbot bans. And we also stood up an AI safety lab to take all the learnings we had on helping understand the impact of how do you do safe models and guardian models to create a nonprofit. So we created an AI safety lab to help make sure that all the investment Character could make, we can give it to other smaller startups as well in case they want to follow the pattern. So what we do for age verification, so the chatbot shutdown that's gone well for age verification, we do a lot of work in age assurance ourselves to infer what, based on the character definition, character names, the type of conversation triggers that can happen, if somebody could be talking to an under 18, is it under 18 or not? And then we use a third-party set of services to then prompt them to say, hey, you need to verify your age, because you could be getting in conversations that could potentially be not for minors. So globally, there is no great answer, to be honest, which is globally saying, hey, 100% age verification. There is no such concept at all, unfortunately. So we end up doing a lot of in-house models and predictions. We use third-party services for actually doing the ID verification and facial recognition. We don't do that. We use third-party services for that. But to be honest, Peter, the only real answer is someone like an Apple or Google, the app stores, they are the right layers which should be enforcing age verification. So the fact that you can install any app, and every startup has to go figure out a way to do it, it's far better for Apple and Google at the app store level, at the operating system level, offer that as a capability. They have far more data, they have far more signals, and they're a much more trusted brand than any startup ever would be to even give age verification. So we feel pretty good about what we've done in the age verification. Yeah. Is it going to be 100%? Definitely no. Are we, pretty high accuracy from all that we can measure with our 20 million users? It's pretty high accuracy. But as we go from 20 to 100 and we go global, I'm really hoping that Apple and Google start offering this. They're already testing it as a mainstream API for us to use.
Yeah. This is going to be a central part, I would imagine. So if I'm an IP holder, let's say I'm at Disney, obviously, especially given some of the experiences that Character.AI has had over from its beginning, there's going to need to be that sort of a feeling that age has been locked down. Verification is, very, very solid. And so when you have those conversations with these companies, because you are now an entertainment first company, that's what it sounds like. Do you feel confident that you have the metrics to show whoever the IP holder is so that they have that feel good feeling about it?
Indeed.
Is it already, do you feel confident right now that you already have things locked down?
Actually, not only, yes, we feel very confident because not only do we have IP holders as stakeholders, we also have regulators that we, communicate with and report back to frequently as well. So absolutely, we feel pretty good about what we already have. And that's the reason why we are in some early conversations with a lot of IP holders. which would not have been possible, to your point, Peter, in case we had not done three things well. Evolved our models to be safe by default, have a very robust content moderation policy, and then have age verification to make sure we know under 18 should not get access to chatbot. Interestingly, though, so that part, used to be a big opening question last year when we were talking to these IP partners.
Yeah.
They've seen all the bold moves and lockdowns and shutdowns we've done to make this very safe experience. But what they are actually, these conversations, how they progress is they like all the new products that we've shipped. And hey, chatbot doesn't have to be the only way, Disney or name any IP studio you want, for people to interact with AI. There's no reason why it cannot be a comic book. There's no reason why it cannot be a book that they can play with. Why it cannot be a story that they can jump in and be immersive in. And all these new formats of entertainment is what is getting them excited to partner with us. So chatbots is where it started. Where the world is headed is a very deep multimodal engagement. And those are so much more on rails that people like this is, and far more visual and far more IP forward, that is far better for them to engage with us based on our innovation versus based entirely on our defensive stance.
Yeah, no, understood. One last question when it comes to minors. So of your 20 million active users that you say, how many of those active users are under 18?
Very small percentage, because we did offboard a lot of them. And we do a hard age verification check. So which is the one downside of age verification is not everyone globally has an ID that we're so used to in the US. Like in the US, of course you should have an ID.
Yeah.
As you go globally, you realize people are like, I am either under 18 or over 18, but I do not have an identification piece of evidence that I can show you. So a lot of people, because of friction, just drop off a platform. So that's the side, unfortunate benefit. So as a result, the number of under 18 users is very, very small, because for them,
would you say under 20%?
Way lower than that.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
That's the reason why we took that hit from erring on the side of safety, but that's the reason why I hope there's a much better way to do age verification, where it's not as heavy friction for users and burdensome for the users to trust a startup with their ID as opposed to a large player like Apple and Google doing it.
So you are now engaged in active conversations courting the entertainment industry. We'll get into fandom too. We'll get into the user-generated content, because my understanding is that that's a significant part. It's not all about licensing content and IP for the kind of uses that we're talking about. But you've raised, from my understanding, about $200 million overall as a company. Does that sound directionally correct?
That was in the the first generation of Character, when Character was before the Google deal happened. So now we have no investors. Whatever money was left after the Google deal is the money we're operating with. So we haven't really gone.
So you're bootstrapped now.
Effectively bootstrapped at this point. And which is both great at the level we can serve the mission without having investor pressure. At the same time, we do need to at some point raise money to go to much larger partnership and IP partnerships and distribution deals. But so we will probably cross that bridge soon. But at the moment, we have no investors and we bootstrapped.
Okay, that's interesting, I guess. And I'll tell you why I asked that question. But so Andreessen is no longer an investor in the company.
Yeah, we have no investors.
Okay, I didn't know that. And I think that will be news to a lot of people out there who are listening, at least in entertainment land,
Right.
So the reason why I ask is
close to us and they're very good well-fishers, but we don't have investors right now.
So how many employees do you have?
75. We're a small startup.
So and here's the question, the reason why I asked that question. So you're courting the entertainment business. So of that, when you're looking at your resources, how many would you call Hollywood insiders to be able to have those kind of relationships that get you to the right place? Because again, typically Silicon Valley doesn't understand or doesn't have the relationships directly to get to the right people to have these kinds of conversations. So I would imagine you have some insiders who are helping you, but just kind of lay out that part of it in terms of your resourcing for that.
So we're, as I said, very, very, very small team. Like most team sizes are teams of one or teams of two for everything we do. And people are like, you're running a 20 million user scale business with 5 to 6 million daily actives. I mean, our infrastructure footprint itself is complex, multi-cloud, very heavy, and 2 people on it. And our entire monetization, because we're very focused on making sure this is a very sustainable, healthy unit economics business. Our entire monetization team is 3 to 4 people. So everything here is very small. So to answer your specific question, I have an army of 1 who does all the heavy lifting with all the partners that we're working with in the Hollywood world. And actually, not just Hollywood, we're doing it globally. We also work in conversations with partners in Asia.
Yeah, of course.
And it's literally an army of 1 person who does that. And he's fantastic. But I think what's happening behind the scenes is, this person is amazing and have relationships, but they're backed with an entire proof point of all the work that we can do uniquely in terms of the data we have, the feedback loops we have, the trust and safety investments we've done, age verification things we've done, the engagement numbers that we have on the app. When you have that proof point to go with, these conversations become a lot easier. So it's an army of 1 backed with a support staff of 70 people. The company, we all, as a joke, we work for him to make sure we can do these conversations very well. But also, there's a lot of pull.
That's a lot for 1 person to do.
Yes, it is. And
things move very slowly at these big IP companies when it comes to entering into these kind of strategic partnerships. But you know this.
Yes. I was in big tech for a long time, so I'm very familiar with that. But yes. Peter, one thing's been fascinating is, as you mentioned earlier, our platform today is UGC. It's fans and super fans and creators creating these characters, and sometimes it's completely original characters that comes from their imagination. Sometimes it is a derivative of one of the TV or the show that they really like, and they have their version of it. When these studios look at the fandoms being built and communities being built, a lot of these conversations are actually inbound demand. So it's not like we have to necessarily reach out. We still reach out for obviously the IPs we care about partnering with, but a lot of it is wow, these communities already exist, and they do not want to miss out on this generational shift that's happening on 18 to 34 audience spending hours a day on this new format of entertainment. They want to learn what's happening. They want to see what makes it so engaging and different than doom scrolling on a TikTok feed or a Instagram feed. Because simple math here is our audiences, our daily actives, on average spend 80 to 90 minutes a day. Somebody who's doing 80 to 90 minutes is no longer sitting on an Instagram or a TikTok. For them, this is entertainment. And these studios, and it's not just studios, other IP holders were like, wow, if you're not on this journey of what to learn, why is this changing so rapidly? What makes it so engaging? Is this co-creativity? Is it control over the storyline? Is it immersiveness? They want to learn. So a lot of our partnerships are actually inbound as a result for that. So we want to obviously continue evolving this beautiful UGC platform that we created. But the more we can have blessed IP come on the platform, it will be a win-win-win across the board, because the users love it. The studios get a great way to monetize their franchise that has been sitting on the shelves for years. And obviously we benefit as an ecosystem matchmaking between the two.
What's your, if you can point somebody out there to a specific example of that UGC that has worked well, an inbound creator who has built an audience using Character.AI?
As soon as if I mention that, I will end up giving up the name of the studio we're talking to, which I'm not privy to.
Okay. No, but I'm talking about user generated, like somebody, an inbound fan, somebody like me who has built an audience rather than licensing from a studio. Do you have an example of that where you think 100%. Is like, but just give a couple reference ones so for the people out there, they can look to those.
It's totally. So that's why as soon as you open the Character app, you'll see the trending section. All the trending sections are creators, which, for example, right now, or earlier this year, K-pop, Korean pop was off the charts globally. Yeah. Obviously, the Netflix movie helped a lot. And then you start seeing these massive new creators coming and creating a whole bunch of lore around and original canon around K-pop's origins, K-pop server, and then they have fan following. Similarly, keep talking about this vampire thing. We have a massive genre on think of the Twilight Saga fans, but the variants of that people will create it. So it's not original IP, but they're inspired by these IP on books in the past, but they create their own derivative characters. And a simple stat here is our top 10,000 creators create 40% of all the engagement on the platform. So that's a very, very powerful two-sided ecosystem where creators are the ones who are creating it. So it's not UGC where I am going and creating my own character to chat with. More often than not, I go and discover amazing characters created by other creators and then start chatting with them. That's the reason why that's probably another aha moment for people who listen to this podcast is, oh, I didn't realize that this is not I'm going and creating a character as a primary use case. Primary use case is I go discover amazing characters created by creators. So this is actually a creator marketplace more than it is just a traditional UGC platform. So that was for me a big aha moment, that we have these amazing creators who are playing with this new AI generated formats of entertainment to go create this amazing lore, canon, backstories for those creators. So yeah, I'm happy to share names of characters as well.
I think that what you said is that you go to Character.AI, you'll see the trending and you can check those out. So tell me the business model in something like that. How does, when you're talking about the most active use case is somebody like me coming to see somebody else's, what they've built, the world that they've built, and then I'm evolving the characters myself. So how do you, Character.AI, monetize? How does the person that I borrowed from or I was inspired by, do they get a piece of it? And then how do I monetize?
Great question. Today, that's why I say we have a creator ecosystem. We don't yet have a creator economy. What we're working towards is these budding, amazing creators. They're creating content to get the fan following, to get the likes and the community feedback. They do not participate in the economy yet because we haven't built the tools for it. So right now, the only monetization path is how do we pay for the inference cost of running very, very expensive AI. And the way Character.AI today monetizes is threefold. Number one is subscriptions. So people who use this app very regularly, they want unlimited access to chats and all the features. They pay a $9.99 subscription, and then they get access to all characters, all chats, unlimited content. Then because it's just expensive, people who don't subscribe, we monetize through ads. So after 20, 30 minutes or 10 minutes of chatting, they would see an interstitial ad. So think of more like a gaming experience where you can play free games, but you get advertised in between. And very recently, we started testing with a third format, which is in-app purchase, what we call charms. And charms is where we hope that can turn into the creator economy. So you can buy charm packs and then
micropayments, microtransactions.
So these are in-app purchases that you can buy. And today you can buy simple features that says, I want to buy a sticker. I want to buy a faster chat model. But that's what we hope to evolve into. Now I can buy a premium character, or I want to tip a creator for the creation. So we're still building the mechanics for that. And that's when we want the creators to participate in the economy, where the users can tip the creators, can buy content directly from the creators. And that's the part we're still working on.
And so it's you mentioned Roblox before, and it's aspirationally along those lines, it sounds like.
Yeah, because a lot of users see us as gameplay. When they're coming in, it's role play. It's not traditional games where it's first-person shooter or anything, but it's role play. So a lot of the learnings we had is this is Roblox /Podcast TikTok. So it's entertainment, but that's a format. So a lot of our learnings and patterns do mimic what a typical gaming would look like. So you see a reward ad, and that unlocks more time on the platform or more features on the platform. Or you could buy micropayments and in-app purchase to unlock special access to features. So those are three ways we monetize now.
Okay, so then that's one area where it's UGC, but it's the primary use case is what you described, which is being inspired by somebody else's and taking a character and building it or expanding the world, essentially. So let's talk about the major IP holders, where you have your person, who's going to be a very busy man, who's going to be identifying the different IP holders and entering into helping them understand the possibilities that you're just talking about with your platform. So what is the pitch to them in terms of how they make, this is an opportunity that they must enter into. So let's take Disney again, for lack of a better one.
Sure.
So your pitch to Disney is what? Why and how do they monetize that and expand engagement with their characters that can then have a halo effect to monetize in other ways downstream?
Indeed. So because I'm going to use now Disney based on this example a few times, let me first put a normal disclaimer. I'm neither confirming nor denying any conversations with Disney. So this is purely...
Yeah. No, I understood. This is Peter Csathy just putting that out there as an example.
So I think Disney is a great example where they have so much IP from their franchises already that a typical format of a studio is they spend hundreds of millions of dollars in creating a new franchise. And then a movie comes out, they make a bunch of money, and then that IP slowly starts atrophying and is sitting on the shelf for a long time. And it's interesting to watch, Peter, that platforms like YouTube and TikTok, they make far more money from these IPs because people are talking about them, they're watching in communities than the original franchise itself. So the franchise is like, wow, I want these fans to be engaging with my characters directly through me. And one of the last stat, and I'll explain the use case for them, is increasingly the fandom is far larger than the franchise itself. More people end up interacting with the fandom than the original content from the franchise. Yeah. And the studios are seeing this. And they're like, it's amazing because it keeps the franchise alive, but they do not participate in the economy at all. It's happening off platform.
Right.
And that is the reason why they're like, the 3 reasons to come to Character. Number one is we have the audience that they want, like the 18 to 34 core audience. Actually, we have 15 to 34, but with changes under 18 to 34.
What percentage of your 20 million active users are within that sweet spot of 18 to 34?
I'm going to hazard a guess because I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I think almost 60% of our audience is 18 to 34.
Okay.
So most of them are 18 to 34 heavy, and also we skew over 50% female, which is also very different for a typical AI platform. Most AI platforms are young male. We are over 50% female. So
how much over 50% female?
I think we're close to 60% as female audience.
Okay, interesting.
So it's a very different demographics. So they're like the other demographics. You have an audience which deeply cares about these fandoms, and they're creating these fandoms anyway. And then, most importantly, you have the technical stack for them to bring these franchises alive. So you can chat with a Disney character. More importantly, you can get before a new.
Well, you can chat with the Disney character if you're over 18.
Yes, everything is over 18. So
yes.
If you're not over 18,
because again, I want to I'm Disney in this case, so I need to understand that. So
exactly,
you're telling me that
there are two possible audiences and experiences to build for. If you're talking Mickey Mouse characters and very very young characters, then chatbot is not the use case for you. We also have a massive content engine, which is the reason why I was mentioning chatbot is one of the use cases. We allow
it's the multimodal world
comics,
that you're
books, stories, podcasts, and FM style article. All of those are available for under 18 because they're not chatbot. So there are other ways to engage under 18 users. But for over 18 users, they want to engage with the chatbot to start with. But chatbot is like just step one of engagement. Then they go into understanding, oh, wow, I want to understand the backstory. Remember, actually, I'm going to use a phrase, like a concept that we are familiar with. Every time I watch a nice movie I really like, I would want to see the director's cut.
Yeah.
I want to see the backstory. I want to see the lore.
Yeah.
Because all these franchises, they're sitting on thousands of PDFs and backstories, why I made this decision, and that's not available anywhere. And how do you bring that alive? You bring that alive by creating these characters, giving them this special lore with us. And then I can learn saying, hey, what happened? What was the backstory? Why in Star Wars or why in Star Trek and the other franchises did the character do X? What was their backstory? That exploration is exactly what a character can do for them, because we have a great way of creating the lore, keeping the character on that storyline, and being available to answer that. But more importantly, then the second way to monetize this is not just premium characters. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Please.
So again, I'm the IP holder, and I'm concerned that I completely buy that. By the way, I've been, I'm quite the flag waver in terms of IP holders need to get paid and need to have consent compensation. One of the use cases that I've always liked about AI that I think is purely incremental is fandom. Putting the characters, the franchise in the hands of fans. One example that proves the case, like from the Disney standpoint, is the movie Frozen. The movie Frozen became the biggest animated film of all time, and it's largely attributed to the fact that for the first time, Disney lawyers allowed users to create YouTube videos with their music. And then that delighted fans, they shared it with others, and that ultimately was the best marketing to get people to come out and see that film. So I love that. But how do you prevent somebody out there who's over 18, if they have that, ability to do this, how do you prevent somebody from taking IP from Disney and creating a sexual experience or, something like that they don't want, which is not on brand for them?
Yes, and that's the reason why a year ago we were not talking to a lot of studios, because we need to make sure from a trust and safety perspective we have the technical chops to saying these are my brand guidelines, and I want to stay. Let's take Star Wars, my personal favorite example. I want to talk to Luke Skywalker, or actually there are a lot of Darth Vader fans on the platform. Darth Vader. Sure. And I want Darth Vader to talk to me on, how my day at work went. So I want to have a conversation about my, I had a great chat with Peter, this is what happened, and Darth Vader voice is doing. I would love that. But at the same time, Disney, rightfully so, would not want Darth Vader to get into off-topic conversation. And our ability to give brand guardrails, saying these are the types of conversations you're allowed, not allowed. And more importantly, it will only respond from your lore. And that lore will not bleed into other characters. All of those are brand promises that our platform can finally make.
Okay, so each IP holder can set their own rules, essentially.
At the franchise level. And also the content that they give to their premium characters that they want to monetize stays within that. See, which is a huge difference between just give us all your Disney content and we will use it for pre-training our models, means everyone who uses a model has access to all the content. That's not our model. Our model is you come and create your character, which is behind a paywall. So you can monetize it, and only that character will have access to that lore. So so you're getting paid when somebody's interacting with it. You can choose to make the character free if you want more publicity and you want more engagement, but you can choose to monetize that. And then you can also set there are very clear guardrails on what topics it can and not talk about. Which is the reason why all our work in trust and safety was almost a prerequisite for us to earn the right to go to talk to these studio holders.
Okay, so from a monetization standpoint, you just said that each partner can set their own rules, essentially. Make it free,
yes.
Charge a micropayment, perhaps.
Or more importantly, they can say, the base character is free, but I want them to be able to buy sticker packs because I'm launching the next movie. So they could do that. They can say, I'm going to make the comics for free, but I want them to talk to a character they need to pay. All those are flexible.
How about a subscription to enter a world, like a Star Wars world? Is that something that is also a possibility?
Possible. So let me caveat all this saying all of these are conversations. None of this is real in the platform. So these are like
Understood.
What we're learning from the studios on how they want to monetize. And there's also a world where we get asked from the studios on, I obviously want your 18 to 34 audience to come on Character.AI. Can you also power this on my website itself? And the same character experiences lives within that. That's the fourth alternative on monetization as well, which is we directly power their engagement and experiences on their native website, as an example. So all those things are early conversations on how IP holders are working with us to say, hey, I want to take all of these expensively built franchises, bring the engagement that I can both monetize, but also I want to know these audiences. That's the last part, which is they need to know which parts of the world, which 18 to 34, which franchises are engaging, what do they like. They want to pre-test the next movie launch.
Yeah.
They run a concept test on this one. So that's the reason why, last year there was a lot of stress in the industry on like, oh my gosh, what happens to these IP holders? How do they work with AI companies? And that was because people are still figuring out the rules of the game. Now, especially with vertical companies like Character, there is very little of no conflict of interest left because we're not trying to pre-train models. Their IP will not leak. We have these trust and safety investments, and we have these new business models that they can explore. Now the conversations this year have become a lot easier to saying, yeah, now we see a path forward together where we are here to help them win, and obviously our users win in return as well.
Let's say I'm an agent at WME or CAA or one of these major talent agencies, and I represent talent. We've talked about IP. Are you also speaking with actual, I'll make it up, Tom Cruise type people, to give them are you seeing that as an opportunity for your company to engage and create characters and work and allow fandom for actual people who are, celebrities or, influencers?
As I said, we have an army of one person.
Yeah.
So no,
you gotta hire some more people, Karan.
Yes, I'm going to get your help as well, Peter. We definitely need help on this one. But as I said, I think we need to prove out this entire concept working at scale with one or two large IP holders before we can scale this platform. But the vision is exactly that. And that's the reason why now when I rewind back last 18 months, every decision we made on under 18 decisions, trust and safety, age verification, brand guardrails, brand safety, multiple ways of monetizing, all were in service that this is the platform for all creatives to come together and saying, I can engage with my audience, I can monetize, I can understand what new is evolving. Do they like chatbots, or do they actually like interactive movies? Do they like play your own game, create your own worlds? All the exploration is now possible. And I think we've done the heavy lifting the last 18 months to get us to this point. Next 12 months will tell us how the entire industry works with us to embrace this more natively.
Yeah, because the IP holders, it's an obvious use case. Completely believe it. I'm a strong fan and proponent of it if it's done right. Mm-hmm. Then, I can tell you, I know this from my own conversations, there is the agents, the talent out there is interested in these kinds of opportunities, new monetization for them, as long as they can lock it down and have control. And then another example, which is related to that one, is in the world of music. People like interacting with music and with their favorite artists. And so there's opportunities there too. So I think that's all very powerful. We've been talking about Disney, and you've been very open about your own journey in terms of the trust and safety and all those sorts of things. Disney, there was, at least several months ago, I'm curious to hear about the evolution since that, there was reported leakage of Disney characters that were within the Character.AI world unlicensed. And so I assume that that's all been tapped down. But can you tell me a little bit about that? Because again, these are conversations you're going to be having with the IP holders where they will have seen these stories and they're going to want to feel confident that that is not happening.
Indeed. I think I'm very, very comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. And the good thing is, we've been very transparent with the evolution of the technology, of the platform, the decisions we make. And the reason why today all our conversations with IP holders goes well is because we've been transparent about things we've learned, things have changed, and what we see in the platform clearly. So, when I'm assuming the article you were mentioning was, these studios are like, hey, we're seeing our characters, we don't want them on the platform, and we immediately do a DMCA takedown. Like we have always and will continue always respecting the rights of IP holders, because especially in the world of AI, we have to respect IP, otherwise it becomes very, very hard to understand where the economy is headed in general. So we always immediately action any DMCA request, and that's the reason why they respect the fact that we want to remain a UGC platform. We want our fandoms to create, but if it violates any of their IP restrictions, we immediately take it down. And because we always actioned this very, very promptly, when you go back for these conversations, they are very open to having these discussions because they know we're coming from a place of good intent, we're coming from a place of good action, and we have track record to do this in a way which will be good for them as well as their fans. So luckily, past actions have held them back.
Is there an ability though for your engineering team to actually, lock that down in a more than a DMCA takedown sort of way? But I would imagine that has been a focus of what some of the,
So that's already there. So today, when you're creating characters with known IP, we automatically disallow that anyway. So that's one thing. I think the question that the IP holders ask is, what happens to derivatives of saying I am inspired by a Moana character? It's not a Moana character, but I'm inspired by a Moana character. Where does that gray area live? That's when the nuance conversation happens. But if we're trying to create a new Disney character and known IP, we automatically block that anyway. So that part is relatively straightforward. I think the question then becomes what happens to derivatives of inspired characters. But because now we give them control to saying, hey, if our systems are not catching anything that you think is truly your IP, we immediately take them down anyway. But we haven't had any of those requests for a while now, simply because like the base platform itself is very clearly blocking the most direct use, if any, and then the studios and IP holders have come a long way understanding that this is actually a very healthy engagement for their fan bases as well. So now the conversation shifted from, oh, please take it down to, this is interesting. People are doing it. What can we do together?
Okay, so I just have a few more questions. Very interesting, all of it. One of the things that, given what we've been talking about, I think it's a very recent development, which is unrelated to the entertainment world, but related to the, just the interactive experiences, that Pennsylvania just a few days ago sued Character.AI because it had accused Character.AI of enabling characters that participate in unauthorized practice of medicine. And that's because there was apparently a bot named Emily that claimed to be a licensed psychiatrist and provided false medical credentials. Now, I'm just raising that because it's such a fresh story. And do you have any comment on that particular case?
We obviously not comment on any pending litigation per se, but I think one thing, as you've seen from our history, we've been very, very, very clear all along, at least in the 18 months I've been here, I can speak to it because I've watched this. We've been very explicit in every experience in UI to have very clear disclaimers that you're talking to AI, chat, this is not real. It's in every screen that you'll ever interact with Character.AI. In fact, we've gone a step further, that when people create characters which are doctors and therapists, we also add another disclaimer on top of that, hey, this is not a real human, this is not medical advice. So that's the reason why, we obviously will follow up on all the litigation that the lawsuit you're talking about. But I feel pretty confident that we put a lot of protections in place already to make sure that there's no confusion that these are bots that people are talking to. This is role play. This has nothing to do with any kind of profession that is licensed to be had on the platform. So that's the reason why, outside of this particular case, which obviously cannot talk about right now, is we've been very clear that this is a fictional world that people are entering, and we constantly remind them of that in the experience. So that's the reason why I feel pretty confident that this is not something that I'm worried that the platform either misguides or does not clarify the place where characters created by UGC community are misrepresenting the use case.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine just in that kind of a case, let's take that specific example, that'd be pretty easy to lock down a character that claims to have some kind of medical certification or something like that. But,
totally.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm just reading out the exact language. When we detect somebody's, because Emily obviously is not a doctor name, there's no doctor name. But if you say, hey, in the character definition, say it's a psychologist or a therapist or a doctor or anything like that in their name or their description, there's a disclaimer that's showing up right now for me saying, this is not a real person or licensed professional. Nothing said here is a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Like, we are detecting that and blocking it already, and have been doing it for a while. So that's the reason why I would love to learn more about the case before I would understand what the assertions there are.
So Karan, you said you're a relatively small team, about 75 people. You don't have outside investors now. How do you compete? How can your small company, relatively speaking, with 20 million active users with very, very expensive infrastructure costs, capacity and all of that. How do you compete against the big guy? How can you win against the Googles of the world and all the other massive players are out there who are spending hundreds of billions of dollars?
We do one thing, and we do one thing really well. We've never been distracted when the entire world was chasing foundational models, utility, coding, and enterprise, and everything else. For 3 years, Peter, the company has been hyper-focused on we will only do entertainment and entertainment really well. I think that laser-sharp focus has allowed us to constantly stay ahead of the curve and continuously iterate because we've been blessed to have the 20 million audience, which is the best feedback loop on what they want. So not being distracted with trying to be everything for everyone with AI, which technically is possible, but it's distracting even for the largest of the players you're talking about. Last year, everyone was fighting foundational models. Now everyone wants to become your code development layer, and the fights are there. Now everyone's like, money's in the enterprise. We've not been distracted. We've been hyper-focused with our amazing user base and creator community to continuously iterate. I think the combination of speed, very, very, very good talent, and a large user feedback loop that we have with the community just allows us to stay ahead of the curve. And I think now we're at a point where hopefully with these IP partnerships, we can have the momentum we need to bring in content which is just uniquely available on our platform. So I feel pretty strongly convicted that we can not only prove that this is uniquely positioned to win, but also create the conditions for attracting other investments going forward, saying, oh, wow, this is a platform I want to bet on. Because this is not a general purpose Copilot. It is purely an entertainment play.
And you indicated at the very beginning that you're in a position now to actually raise capital. That sounds like that's something that's right now on the radar screen.
It is, because we have also proven that we can monetize and we can become unit economics positive as a business, as opposed to just burning our way through user growth. We're holding our line on user growth till we can prove that this is safe, highly engaging, and a monetizable business.
And Karan, do you have kids?
I do, and so I have a 6-year-old, which is where a lot of my North Star comes from.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, with all the angst that parents are feeling out there and young people are feeling about AI, just how do you feel about it? You're right in that world. So, obviously you're a positive person and, ultimately you believe that AI will be a net good for society. But, as a father of a young person, just how do you feel? Do you struggle with any of these things? Like, do you fear the future? I let you characterize it any way you want.
Yes, I think for me, I'm a technologist and I'm an optimist. So I want to see the world, getting better with AI. That doesn't mean that there aren't use cases which are not so safe by default, and that's the reason why the trifecta of parents, technologists, and regulators working together, in some cases academicians, is going to be very, very important as we shape this technology. So as a parent myself, I love my daughter to use ChatGPT and Gemini, whatever tool she wants, and with me, Character, but all of it is through supervision. So if any of parents are watching this, my only thing will be, don't be scared of AI. You have to embrace it, because that's what the next world is going to live on. And let's not make the mistakes we made in social media where we assume it'll go away. What we want to embrace it, supervise it, co-create with them. The good thing is this is far more accessible and understandable because you can tell AI to teach itself. So just embrace it, but definitely monitor the use. So we co-develop this in a safe way.
Yeah, it all makes sense. Like I get it. At the same time, you were talking about an average session being 80 to 90 minutes. And so, as parents, like getting our kids away from the screens is also a critical thing, so, I don't know how you feel about that, but engagement is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's why I think for under 18 users, we've been very clear about saying, hey, for minors, there is no chatbot, there's no open-ended long-term engagement to start with. And only when you're an adult, when you can start making a little bit more responsible decisions yourselves, that the platform opens up. So I think a lot of those things they work in conjunction to make sure this remains the safest platform.
Karan, you deal with a lot. You have you are a very visible person in this, where everybody's struggling, where AI will take us. How do you de-stressify as a person?
A lot of meditation helps in the mornings. I think we're blessed that I follow Sikhism and I meditate. Right now, I'm not walking, but normally you would see me walk on my walking treadmill all day long, getting some exercise, some fresh air. So I had to sit down for this interview, but I'm always walking. So Sarah and team will know that you'll see me bobbing along the day. So yeah, that's what gets me going. Some blood flow, and and also belief that humans and humanity is just very creative. We can power through pretty much anything together.
Well, very good. Listen, Karan, very much appreciate your time and the candid conversation that we had on the podcast today. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about the entertainment world, all that sort of thing. But this is going to be generating a lot of interest out there for sure. So very fascinating discussion. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Peter.
The Brain Podcast is a weekly production of Creative Media, Peter Csathy's AI, entertainment, media, and marketing, business advisory, and legal services firm. Look for it every Tuesday and follow it, rate it, and subscribe to it. It's edited and mixed by Luca Csathy with original music by Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo. You can learn more about Creative Media at creativemedia.biz. Until next time, keep innovating, but smartly, fairly, and in partnership with artists, not in spite of them. After all innovation ultimately flows from the brain of creators. Cheers.